What's up, everyone? Thankfully, you have found us because otherwise it would just be the two of us talking to ourselves, our producer, our technical director, and any other live viewers who walk into the room. This is the Slate, brought to you by DraftKings, the sports Thursday night edition, which means it's not just football. Maybe later we'll get into a little basketball and golf and whatever else you guys want to talk about. But of course, primarily, it is all about football and Thursday night football in particular. Reid Fowler, I am Adam Kaufman. How are you, man?
Good. Busy. Week 11, only two teams on bye. I think it's the Rams and it's someone else. Forget the other team.
If you want that kind of knowledge, I'm happy to look it up for you. I can provide it.
I can't remember. Anyway, that's how busy it's been.
Top of my head, though. That's a whole other thing.
Yeah. But it's good. It's NBA is in full effect. 15, 16 games in. Golden State Warriors look like they're, pretty good. Draymond Green's got his own podcast, which is awesome. But I'm wearing my Michigan State green for Draymond Green.
Rams and Broncos. Our buddy
right.
BK's Broncos. They are the teams on bye.
That's week. Why I didn't remember, because the Broncos are garbage. But no, I'm excited. This is going to be a fun week, and it starts off with quite a nostalgia matchup here on Thursday night. A little bit, huh, Koff?
Well, you might say that. My beloved New England Patriots in Atlanta, a place that they won a Super Bowl, although not against the Falcons. That was a different Super Bowl. But of course, winning in Atlanta against who was it again?
Too many to remember, right?
Yeah, it's hard to you lose count. The Rams was the one in Atlanta, but of course beat Atlanta in Houston. That was back in Super Bowl 51, where you might remember there are a whole lot of memes, things like that are going around social media right now, Reid, hoping that one team jumps out to a 28-3 lead. But you know what? Sometimes you don't need memes. Sometimes you just need the oddities of real life. Did you know, Reid? There's a little Reid tease. Did you know that there is a partial lunar eclipse scheduled for later on tonight, and it is scheduled to last 3 hours and 28 minutes?
I don't believe you.
It's true. Look it up. It's on social media. I even retweeted it. The Patriots put it out and everything. Yeah.
I believe the Patriots when they tell me something. Yeah. No, thank you. I'll pass. Yeah.
Daniel, our technical director, says it's the first of its kind in 580 years. A 3 hour.
Yeah. You know who doesn't believe that? Flat earthers. Flat earthers don't believe there's a lunar eclipse.
Good news. Kyrie Irving's not listening to this show.
No, that is pretty cool. These things, right? The planets align, and
quite literally planets are aligned to make this possible.
That's actually really cool. That's a really cool fact. Yeah,
it is strange for sure, but it's going to be fun. Look, I mean, we talk about extensively about Thursday night football every week. Sometimes you get good games, sometimes you get bad games. This one, at least in the eyes of the odds makers, and we'll get into DFS and give you some overviews of these two teams, things like that you should expect, obviously, and we'll show you some fast facts. Talking about the DK Sportsbook, though, Reid, it's not like this is expected to be a good game. The Patriots are favored by 6.5 points. Again, it is in Atlanta. That is a place, by the way, the Falcons, while they are technically 1-3 at home this year, that one win over the Jets was a neutral game out in London. So the Falcons have not won in Atlanta at all this season. Patriots have won their last 4 rather convincingly at that, largely because of the defense. The defense has really stepped up. It's the top 5 defense in the NFL in most metrics. They're the number 2 scoring defense in the league. They have an offense on the other side, the Falcons, that is just decimated. The latest news is Hayden Hurst, to the degree that you want to get excited about Hayden Hurst, but Hayden Hurst placed on injured reserve. He's not playing. Cordero Patterson remains a game time decision with the ankle injury. Very dynamic player, as the Patriots well know, used to play for them. He is looking like he is not going to play. It is trending in that direction, but we'll see. And so obviously Calvin Ridley is not going to play. 4th straight absence for him because of the mental health situation that he is dealing with. And so it's Matt Ryan coming off his worst career game in the 40-point loss to the Cowboys, and Kyle Pitts. It's all about Kyle Pitts. And if Bill Belichick does the Bill Belichick thing of, I got to take one guy out of this game and focus in on, as you would expect, the leading receiver, Kyle Pitts, I don't know what Atlanta's going to do tonight.
Yeah. I mean, as like it'll take a celestial type phenomenon to figure out what Arthur Smith and the Falcons are going to do to a team that probably, arguably, not just because we're here, not just because this is a Patriots show when Adam Kaufman is hosting, a team that has probably the best, like the most momentum, right, heading into this week of any team. With the Patriots, they look fantastic on all three facets of the ball, and it's like I if there's a coach out there or a scheme out there that you want coming in off a short week after they completely blow out the Cleveland Browns, right, where they could potentially have a let up spot in this matchup because of all the stuff you laid out, it's Bill Belichick to be the antithesis of that and say, no way, like absolutely not. Like we are going to come into this as well tuned as possible, and they're going to win the game, right? And so if you wanted to, like the money line, like minus 300, I know you got that's a lot, but I mean, I forget what game it was on how sure I was. It was like a money line of around the same number. I'm like, this is going to happen, right? Oh, I think it was the Jets after they beat Cincinnati. Like this is going to happen. Now the 6.5, the look ahead for this game, I think on Sunday was 4.5. And so if you really liked it, right, that was the spot to get it at. I think even like way back when the season, like week 1, this was obviously a lot shorter because you just didn't know what New England. That's the only thing that gives me pause though, that this spread, even though I do think it does go to the Patriots side, is that it's a low total, 47. It could probably get down to 46.5 by game time. When you have around a touchdown spread, a touchdown difference, you got to watch out for the backdoor cover from the underdogs. We've seen it time and time again, especially in these low scoring games where, you know, it'll be closer than anticipated. And we've seen some crazy things happen on Thursday, Cough. We've seen Miami beat Baltimore. We see a lunar eclipse. We've seen up is down, right is left.
Yeah.
Like we've seen a lot of weird things happen on Thursday night. The one team that you feel confident in, there's a couple of teams, right? Maybe the Saints, maybe some other teams that have that coaching and that culture. The Patriots are one of those teams that, you know, they will come out of this week with a win. That 6.5 though, that's a little scary.
Well, so I was just going to say, when it comes to the money line, as you highlighted, look, we both believe the Patriots are going to win this game. They should win this game. The odds makers believe they'll win this game. But when you're looking at the 6.5, and in particular, when you're looking at the 47, the over under, you know, again, this is just it's a decimated Atlanta offense. The Patriots offense is, you know, it's good. It's not exceptional by any means. I mean, they've largely won games because of their defensive play during this run of winning 4 in a row and 5 of 6. But you know, again, Mac Jones projects to be the leading scorer when it comes to DFS in this game tonight. Doesn't mean weird things won't happen. Hunter Henry, Jacoby Myers, Kendrick Bourne, Damian Harris, maybe even Matt Ryan or Kyle Pitts, you name it. I mean, those are obviously the bigger names. But when you look at the 47, do you think it gets there, or are you like me? You feel like it's, you know, it's going to get close, but you're looking at the under.
Yeah, I mean, there's value in the over, right? It's minus 105. You could argue that the Patriots could have, like, I can't remember a time sans Randy Moss and Tom Brady where the Patriots go back to back and put up 30-point games. Like, I just don't. Like, that's just not their style, right? Like, Belichick is fine winning this game 23-10.
Mm-hmm.
Like, and when you get that type of game where he's saying, okay, we're on a short week, then we get that mini bye, that 10-day window until our next game. You could see him maybe pulling it back a little bit, right? And just relying on that defense. J.C. Jackson is fantastic. Kyle Duggar looks really good as that hybrid type of safety linebacker role. Matt Judon looks like an amazing guy. Looks like he's 5 years younger. And so, you know, you start to think about like the story about this game, and like, can Russell Gage take over this game? Can, you know, Zacchaeus take over this game? Can Kyle Pitts as a rookie tight end take over this game? And if they keep him outside, right, that's not, to me, that's right where Belichick wants them, right, is to put a guy like Kyle Pitts on the outside as opposed to in line near the tight end near the line. So I don't see it happening. But again, we talk about Thursday, we talk about weird things happening. There is value on the over at 47 at minus 105, especially. It's just, I'd be more inclined to bet that if Cordell Patterson was going to play, even if he is, Man, it's like a mid to high ankle sprain, and it looks really doubtful for him.
Looking at some of the just round numbers again, not even necessarily trends, but where we're at so far this season for the Patriots, who again, they've won their last four. They're allowing about 12 points per over those last four during the winning streak. They're coming off that 45-7 blowout of the Browns. Sixth ranked scoring offense, sort of middle of the pack pass and rush, but overall sixth ranked scoring offense, second scoring defense, sixth overall. You talked about Mac Judon. Yeah. He's got 9.5 sacks, already tying a career high with a whole lot of season left. Patriots offense getting a little bit healthier. You got Damian Harris returning from the concussion. He's expected to play, which important to know for anyone that's sitting there thinking about, running back to Romantre Stevenson. I would say priced a little too high to be tempted to do that if you believe that obviously Harris is going to be healthy. Hunter Henry's coming off a couple touchdown game. He leads all NFL tight ends in touchdowns with 7. On the other side for Atlanta, this is the 25th scoring offense, 25th overall in terms of yardage as well. They're coming off a 40-point loss to the Cowboys. And also, even more notably, as we were kind of highlighting that Patriots offense and some of the different talent they have there, 31st scoring defense, 22nd overall. So this Atlanta team has really been bad on both sides. Then you add in, again, the missing personnel that we've already talked about some. I just, I don't know what kind of story, we always like to talk about this, what kind of story we need to tell ourselves, whether it is a Russell Gage or a Mike Davis or, I don't know, somebody like that, or just Matt Ryan totally rebounding, obviously. I don't know how Atlanta goes about winning this game within the prism of the stats that we've seen so far this year.
Yeah, I mean, what have we seen rookie quarterbacks do on Thursday? Like, it's not even rookie quarterbacks. What have we seen quarterbacks do on Thursday night, right? Especially rookie quarterbacks. I mean, take Lamar Jackson last week, for instance. Like, we don't expect Miami to do that to Lamar. But on a short week, defense says, you know what? We're going to blitz way more than we ever have, way more than this guy's ever seen, and then let him try and figure it out. That's where I think the Atlanta Falcons could actually do some damage, and buying low on Atlanta right now because of last week's performance and selling high on the Patriots, right? Patriots blow out. Like, this is the perfect storm, Koff, for taking Falcons plus 6.5, plus 7, wherever it is. I like it to go up to 7. I think it potentially can at the, before kickoff. But you take this, Cleveland, absolutely, with Baker Mayfield in a contract year, is going out there essentially at 50%, and he looks like garbage. And you take away, the run game for the Browns, even though Dearness Johnson did, from a statistical standpoint, fantasy-wise, did okay, didn't do well for football standpoint. So you take away that and you blow them out, and then vice versa. Like you see on the Atlanta side, they get blown out as well, right? Matt Ryan before that, though, was throwing up 300+ point, like 300-yard games left, right, and center. Now, they don't have some of their players, but this is still an NFL football team. This is still a team that's got a vendetta against the Patriots, like everyone else in the NFL. So again, you could see some weird things happening, right? You could see the Falcons maybe just passing it a ton. They rush Deion Jones. They rush all of their guys. They bring in some safety blitzes, some exotic blitzes that you can get maybe Mac Jones a little bit confused on. Maybe they get a defensive score, and Matt Ryan can put up 2 touchdowns. They get 21 points. Now I'm talking about like all things kind of have to go as planned, which is kind of what we're seeing on Thursday with underdogs, is that they feel like we got nothing to lose potentially, especially the last couple of weeks. So that's the one part where I take pause in that spread. And if I had to choose on a spread, like on a side, I'd rather go Falcons than Patriots because of that. But you're right. Like from a team perspective, the game total or the team total is on the Patriots side, right? Like that's where you want to go for showdown. That's where I potentially want to go from that standpoint. Props, I think I'd rather go on the Atlanta side.
Well, let's talk about some of the props then. Matt Ryan, again, coming off arguably the worst game of his career, certainly the lowest rated game of his career. He went 9 of 21, though, 2 interceptions, obviously no touchdowns. The team only putting up 3 points, had 117 yards. His over-under on the DraftKings Sportsbook tonight is sitting at 249.5, which is right there with Mac Jones at 252.5. So as you look at these QBs, what are your expectations there?
Yeah, I mean, the yards kind of scare me just because like yardage from a props standpoint. Let me just take a look here. like passing yards, it's hitting about 54%, which is pretty high. And this one, you think, right? Negative game script, he's gonna have to pass a lot. He's gonna have to probably dink and dunk a little bit towards the end. But I do think that they're going to be able to get the ball moving more than we anticipate, at least from a prop standpoint. So this one on Matt Ryan, I'm more inclined to go with him at 249.5 over as opposed to Mac Jones, especially if you have what we saw with Romantre, Stevenson, and Damian Harris, and what the Patriots clearly want to do. They're like the third most run heavy team in the NFL. Like they just want to run the ball. And we know by looking at their pass catchers, they didn't go out and acquire any big names. They want to run the ball. And then when they can, they'll pass to Hunter Henry in the red zone. They'll get Jacoby Myers across the middle. Kendrick Bourne might get like a wide receiver screen and take it 80 yards. That's their game plan. So I'd rather go Matt Ryan over 249.5 if you want to go there. But I like Matt Ryan, over 1.5 passing touchdowns at plus 115.
Okay.
You kind of figure that he has to do this, right? If they want to have any shot, that he has to do this, and you're getting plus money on this, you're seeing it, and he's hit this number quite a bit. You take a look at his game logs over this season. So I do think even against a hard defense in New England, especially that pass rush that's looked really good, I think Matt Ryan over 1.5 touchdowns at plus 115 to get plus money too. I think that's nice.
Yeah, I agree with you. I mean, if we'll make the move to DFS shortly, but when it comes to daily fantasy and looking ahead to tonight's showdown, I would feel comfortable rostering Matt Ryan. I think a lot of people, I think the bulk of the ownership is going to have 2 QB lineups, regardless of what you think Mac Jones is going to do tonight. I think that one, if Atlanta's playing from behind, again, Matt Ryan's more inclined to throw. On top of that, without Cordell Patterson, I just, I don't feel great if I'm Atlanta about that run game. And the fact that, you don't have Patterson, who, as we know, is not only a valuable commodity on the ground, but also in the air. And if you're not going to have Hurst, who, could be at times reliable for Ryan. Again, you don't have Ridley. It's just Pitts. And especially I want to roster Kyle Pitts. I do, in spite of the fact that we know Belichick's going to be trying to take him out. I do want to roster Kyle Pitts, but Matt Ryan, you don't know where the scores are going to go if the scores are there for Atlanta. So you want to have exposure to them. So I'm inclined to go with you. I would like that 1.5 as well.
Yeah. And again, we're discount. I think everybody does this. Recency bias. The last time we saw the Patriots, the last time we saw Matt Ryan, he looked god awful. And Matt Ryan has been this like 2 ends of the spectrum quarterback this year, really good or really bad. From a season-long fantasy standpoint, I don't want to even don't even think about Matt Ryan. If you think about starting Matt Ryan, go start like someone who's on the bench, like for their actual team, because Matt Ryan, from that standpoint, like season-long, right? Because you have so many options at season-long, right? That's why I'm saying that Matt Ryan, from that perspective, is a non-starter for me. But in this single matchup, I do think that he can get it done. I think that when you take a look at the Falcons, look, this is still what I said to begin with. This is still an NFL team. It's like Zacchaeus, when Julio Jones was out last year, even though Calvin Ridley was in, was a good player, right? So if you take away Calvin Ridley, you bring in Kyle Pitts, not the same player, but from an offensive scheme standpoint, Kyle Pitts is gonna play that role, especially if Patterson is out. That leaves Zacchaeus on, and this probably you can speak better to this than I can, the second best cornerback that the Patriots have. And that to me is somewhere that you could still see someone like that get you a lot of points in DFS, especially when no one's probably going to like the third receiver in the Atlanta Falcons.
Let's go to some of these. Let's stay with receivers, tight ends, rushing and receiving props. Let's go to the DraftKings Sportsbook here. What you're looking at on your screen, off the quarterbacks onto some of these guys, starting right here with the rushing yards. I think it's interesting, obviously, that, the Sportsbook is kind of as clueless as we are with regard to what to expect in terms of the rushers for Atlanta. I mean, you see Matt Ryan there, but you don't have Mike Davis. You don't have Wayne Gallman. And obviously we don't know right now about Cordell Patterson. So you can't even make that bet if you want to at this moment. For the Patriots, Romantre Stevenson, who's coming off the 100-yard game. Again, don't be fooled, looking at that 38.5 and say, he had 100 last week. Of course, I'm going to play that number. Damian Harris is back. He's off the concussion. He's, healthy. He's ready to go. 53.5. I think these guys are interesting because I think Harris is going to be a big part of the game, as he should be. I think he's going to vault right into the role he normally has. He's been very good this season. Where Stevenson could be attractive, though, is if you believe this game is going to get out of hand, someone's going to be running that ball in garbage time just to kill clock. And it's not necessarily going to be Harris. It could be Brandon Bolden, could be JJ Taylor. These guys aren't even listed here, obviously. But what would your approach to these props be?
Yeah, I mean, stay away. Like, even though rushing yards has been the single most profitable of the over props on Thursday night at 55% of the time, this is the one spot where you're like, man, I don't know. I do know this though. And again, you're probably more privy to this than I am. Brandon Bolden is a special teams guy. They want to keep him on special teams. He's really good on special teams. So I don't think he gets into the mix. And you're seeing that from the props board that he's not even on here, right? Then again, we have no idea. Rex Burkhead could come back and suit up in number 34 and get back out there. So from a rushing on the Patriots side, I'd stay away. And then obviously, like you mentioned, with the Falcons, we have no idea. We have no idea. If I had to lean one, right, if you're inclined, you really want to play, to bet on a rushing prop, man, these quarterbacks, 4.5, 2.5 yards, that is nothing. Right. That is nothing. So especially Mac Jones, who doesn't rush a lot. Like I mentioned, the blitzes, Deion Jones last year blitzed a ton. And he's one of these linebackers that has so much speed. You could definitely see Mac Jones scrambling for a 5-yard gain and you hit that number. I'd rather go to these quarterbacks actually.
Until he takes a knee at the end.
I know. Yeah. And even Matt Ryan at 2.5. Those numbers are more enticing than trying to figure out which Patriots back is going to do it.
What about these receiving yards? As you look at it, obviously there's no huge number for anyone. Kyle Pitts is the biggest at 60.5. Makes a lot of sense. Again, he's Atlanta's leading receiver and he's really their most viable target right now by a wide margin. You have Myers, who, certainly has that rapport with Mac Jones. Hunter Henry, it's sort of very touchdown dependent in terms of his success. He doesn't put up a lot of yards, not a lot of catches. When they are there, they're generally short gains. So the 32.5 makes sense. Kendrick Bourne has come on quite a bit of late, had almost 100 yards last week. He's all the way down at 35.5. You mentioned Russell Gage, 44.5. So that's the second biggest number for Atlanta. Anything jump out at you?
Yeah, so I mentioned that last question that the overs has hit on rushing yards. It's actually the unders that have hit on that. So even more to my point, I don't want to touch it. When you take a look at receiving yards, I'm just looking at the numbers here, 44.4% receiving yards hit the over, right? We're always bullish. When we're betting, right, we don't want to bet unders because that means that if we bet unders, then it's a bad game, right? Statistically speaking. But it's been profitable. If you're betting unders in props, it's been profitable. And take a look at the receiving yards. The under has been the most profitable at around 57 or 56%, hitting the under on the receiving yards prop. And I'm looking at one guy in Russell Gage at 44.5 right now, minus 115 as an under. I think that he's someone that is fine in a vacuum, but in this game specifically, I just don't see it. I don't see the routes aren't necessarily there. Olamide Zaccheaus is the guy that I'd probably lean towards on the Falcons side at 33.5, because at least he has that game and he has that rapport with Matt Ryan from last year. Russell Gage has been hurt throughout this entire season. He's been banged up here and there throughout this entire season. If I'm going to Kyle Pitts, I like his over 5.5 receptions because A, you're getting plus money. Yep. And B,
it's actually down to 4.5.
Okay, perfect. And who else? Right? The argument of who else applies to no one more right now than Kyle Pitts.
Yep.
He's just the guy right now that's getting so much play, so much running. Take a look at his routes. It's upwards of 20 every single week. He's gotten 7 targets, six in the last, three contests. And he's getting to that number at 4, 3, 2 receptions. I get it. But there's no one else, man. There is no one else on this team. And you're getting plus money for the best receiver at over 5.5. Yes, the argument of Belichick taking your best player away, it's not going to do it on every single play. So I like that, especially now at 4.5, as opposed to what you saw earlier when I was at 5.5.
Minus 145 in that over 4.5. Your guy Zaccheaus, by the way, is sitting at 2.5, minus 140 on the over, plus 105 on the under.
Yep.
It's interesting. Rushing and receiving yards. The only guy you can even get right now is Romantre Stevenson.
Yeah, I think that's a red herring. I
Yeah.
think it's a guy that's out there. It's enticing, but that's recency bias. Ramondre Stevenson is, I think he's nice when you saw when he could get a bell cow role. Like Patriots fans love it because it's like you haven't seen that since who? Like I can't even think of Dion Lewis maybe. And even then he was more of a scat back. But like we haven't seen it. Maybe Curtis Martin was the last guy. That was the last guy that you guys saw in the backfield that could get you pass and run. But I would not want to back that because just you have no idea.
Let's move on over to keep going with this game, but we'll talk DFS here. Obviously, $1 million available to a winner. If there is a solo winner tonight, you got the $2.25 million Thursday Night Millionaire contest with $1 million going to first place. And already we have, let's see, looks to be north of 51,000 entries that are in there right now. So pricing is interesting. Again, Ramondre Stevenson, just because we were just talking about him, you will note, I mean, he's priced right there with Damian Harris, which is all the more reason to not play him tonight because he's $8,600 and that's just for the flex spot. And that's because earlier this week, we didn't know if Harris was going to play. Would have made some sense, obviously, if he didn't. He's at 8,800. Mac Jones is marginally cheaper than Matt Ryan, 10.6 versus 10.8. Kyle Pitts at 9,600. A lot of the stuff you can see on your screen right now. In terms of, I'm just taking a look at, some of the projections. Like Mac Jones is projected for right around 20 points tonight. Matt Ryan, and that, by the way, is the high for this game. Matt Ryan is sitting right around 17. Kyle Pitts in that same vicinity as well. You could look at ownership projections as well. Mac Jones is obviously going to be heavily owned. He's projected to be owned in the neighborhood of, let's see, sitting, looks like about just south of 60% in the flex spot, and another maybe 15% at captain. Is he the guy that makes the most sense at captain for you tonight?
You talking about Mac
Yeah.
Attack? No, actually he doesn't. I think it's Matt Ryan.
Interesting.
10-8. Yeah, I think it's 10-8 for the underdog quarterback, I think is a steal. Because like we just talked about it, right? Like 16-2 in the captain spot, it's fine. Usually we see players in this spot be, a lot more than this. And look, he doesn't offer you a lot of rushing upside, clearly.
Yeah.
But
why that number is only 2.5.
That's why the number's only 2.5, baby. But look, he's hit that 2 out of the last four weeks. 4 games. But like, look at his game log, against New Orleans, which New Orleans is a good defense, guys. He put up 31.5 points, right? Like 22.4 against Miami, who we just saw thwart a guy like Lamar Jackson. Against the Jets, well, everyone puts up numbers against Jets, but like I'm willing to bank on this being a better game than the 2.68. Right. And, how much better of a game? I think that that remains to be seen. But I'm, you and I are clearly bullish on someone like a guy like Matt Ryan, who I think in this type of matchup, you gotta be rostering the quarterbacks, both of them. And I think Matt Ryan as the underdog, this 6.5 points where he's going to have to play catch up is a guy that I want, especially because of what he did last week, where he only put up 2.68 and only completed 9 passes.
I'm just looking at some of these ownership projections here, third-party sites, obviously, but again, Mac Jones just south of 60%. Matt Ryan,
it's crazy,
right around 44%. You got Kyle Pitts right around 45%. Jacoby Myers 38%. Mike Davis, a lot of big believers in him tonight, right around 34%. More than a quarter of lineups for Russell Gage, for Nick Folk, for Nelson Aguilar, for guys like that. The question that I'm building up to here, Reid, is where, especially when you're chasing $1 million, where are you setting yourself apart in this game?
I think the contrarian play would be Patriots wide receivers. That's where you got to set yourself apart. Like maybe going Jacoby Myers in the captain spot, because maybe the finally getting a touchdown opens up the floodgates, or maybe it doesn't, because look at his target share like over the last couple of games. It's been kind of meh.
Yeah, it's down.
Yeah. So like I think that's where you differentiate yourself, because that's
5 every week until the last 2 weeks when he's been 4 apiece.
Right. And then hopefully you see that get back to it, right? The game script, again, like you have to flip it on its side and say, what if this game is Atlanta's up and the Patriots are down? I mean, again, stranger things have happened. We saw Miami and Baltimore, two different teams, but I'll harken that. We've seen it time and time again. If this is switched, what is going to give you leverage off the field? It's the Patriots wide receivers, especially if we're all saying Patriots going to run, Patriots going to run. This is what they do. They're the most run heavy team. Well, they still can get you points. I mean, look what Kendrick Bourne did. I know it was a long reception, right? But he's a guy that can get you that play. He can get you that big play. So that's where you differentiate yourself, in my opinion. And my favorite of the receiving core is probably Jacoby Myers, just because of the archetype of player that he is. That's where I want to go for my captain spot if I'm choosing a Patriots wide receiver, because we've seen him get the volume before.
He's not a wide receiver. He is a pass catcher. The guy I'm showing on the screen right now, Hunter Henry, again, not a heavy target share. He's topped out at 4 over the last, every week since week 6. Before that, he was getting a larger load, which is interesting. Even with Jonnu Smith out, the targets aren't quite there. But touchdowns, absolutely. Look at this. So week 4, touchdown, 5, touchdown, 6, touchdown, 7, touchdown, 8, 1 and 9, 2 and 10. The guy is scoring almost every single week. He's averaging a touchdown a week every week going back to week 4, Reid. But as we've seen, that's the reason he's finishing in double figures in fantasy points. It's because of the touchdowns. It's not the yards. It's not the receptions. Do you feel good about him tonight?
Oh, I mean, what do you want from your tight end, right? If you're playing fantasy, because most of these guys aren't Travis Kelce. Most of these guys aren't Darren Waller, and even Darren Waller isn't Darren Waller of week 1.
No.
You want those right? You want those touchdowns, man. Like that's what you bank on from a tight end. If you can get those, boy, it differentiates yourself. Maybe that's more for season long, but even taking a look at this, let's take a look at his red zone targets since week 5. He's gotten 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 9 red zone targets over a course of 6 weeks. So he's getting looks, and then he's converting on those looks. Yep. So it's not just he's running a route and Matt Jones is like firing 20 yards in the stands. They're specifically when I see that, I look at, man, those are specifically for him. 2 red zone targets last week, 2 touchdowns. So it's when they get down there, he is their plan. He is their 1B. If Damian Harris, the run game, is their 1A. So I really like that. Granted, last week, and you have this guy up on the screen now, Jonnu Smith wasn't active. He comes in, but even then,
he's cheap. He's 2,400. If you're thinking about it, I'm not saying he's going to be better than Hunter Henry. Maybe he will be, but could be an attractive punt play. Could be, but that leads into the how do you differentiate yourself, right? You play Jonnu instead of Hunter, right? That's the play. But when you take a look at his just the routes run, that's the part that scares me with him, is that you just don't know, right? And N'Keal Harry, he's been banged up, but he played last week, so you have to bring that into consideration as well. But look at his routes run, Koff, since week 5, 6 in week 5. This is Jonnu Smith. 11 in week 6, 8 in week 7, 14 in week 8, and 2 in week 9. The guy's just not running routes. We all thought Jonnu was the more athletic guy that's going to be running more routes in the beginning of the year. He ran 19 routes in week 1. Since then, he hasn't eclipsed 14. It's not going to cut it. Do you have I'm just pulling it up here so we can both see it as well. In terms of the cheaper plays, really dirt cheap, minimum or close to it, sub 1K plays. Do you have a favorite? I mean, Lee Smith is probably someone who jumps out as a potential option. N'Keal Harry, obviously, at $600 if he plays. He's questionable right now. Just looking at it. Still, N'Keal's not getting more than a couple targets.
No, but he could get you that touchdown, right?
Absolutely could.
He could give you to the touchdown, right? Lee Smith, with the Hayden Hurst injury. Yeah.
But that could be without Hayden Hurst, absolutely.
Yeah, without Hayden Hurst, that's definitely in play for Lee Smith. But then again, this is a game that this doesn't really feel like I want the Aaron Rodgers type player to get a Mercedes Lewis touchdown. If that makes sense.
Sure.
These guys don't really we don't really see the factoring in of like the different type of scheme from a pass catcher standpoint. Like JJ Taylor at 1,000, maybe as a dart throw. But I mean, if I had to choose, I mean, yeah, probably Lee Smith because he's the stone min, right? Like he can get you that touchdown. If he gets you that touchdown, you're like 40x the price.
Mm-hmm.
So like, yeah, Lee Smith. No one's going to have Lee Smith. If you want to take a dart on that, then fine. I want like the kickers too. Shout out Jason Rossi. I think the kickers are in play as well.
It's true. I did mention Nick Folk before, obviously, as a guy who's a little bit cheaper. I mean, not super cheap. He's $4,400, but a guy who's, routinely giving you 6, 7, 8 points. I mean, he's got the handful of games where he's double figures as well.
Yeah. Especially in this game. 47.
In this one, absolutely.
Yep. Like it. Young Way, definitely in play.
We got about 10 minutes left in this show, Reid. We've, as is the case and should be the case, I think we've been, big on Thursday Night Football because this is the game tonight. It's coming up, and football is king. But if we look ahead at the weekend, and lot can change obviously in X number of hours before Sunday. But as we look at what's going on right now, based on the main slate. So you got obviously the Titans at home are heavy favorites, 10 points against the visiting Texans. You got 11-point favorites, the Browns, looking for a bounce back at home against the Lions. Let's see. You've got those are the big ones, right? Yeah. And then, those are the big ones right now, other than going ahead to Monday night. So in terms of the main slate, is it one of those larger spreads that you're looking at, or are there some other games that you're fixated on? What do you got?
Yeah, the larger spreads, I want to stay away from them just because it's the variance in the NFL, especially what we've seen Jacksonville and Jets, blah, blah, blah. Like, give me a break. So yeah, the Titans, again, they've beaten really good teams. Texans haven't, but you never know. So I'm going to stay away from that game. There's 3 games that I actually really like, and I'll rank them in like the ones that I like the most to the least. I think the one that I like the most is Baltimore -5 over Chicago. And this opened at 6 or 6.5 earlier in the week. And a lot of people are on Chicago, right? Because you're seeing that move closer to Chicago. And when you talk about the Ravens, they're coming off, a bad outing against Miami. They're down. Chicago, even though they lost, right? Even though they lost and Cassius Marsh got a little bump from the ref, in their last contest, they're still they got a lot of positive publicity. And Justin Fields, whether he's a QB, like people are saying in season long, he's a QB1, start Justin Fields. We've seen Justin Fields under pressure. And we've seen him really be bad under pressure. I think there's too much positive hype around the Chicago Bears after their bye. And we forget that this team, and David Montgomery is nice to have back, but this team, from a passing perspective, it looks better. But you're talking about the Baltimore Ravens who bring so much pressure week in and week out. That scares me. And when you get Baltimore at -5 and now it's coming down closer to these like a lower number, I'm going to jump all over that. And so the Ravens to me is a team that I really, really like. I can see, this defense bringing in a lot of pressure towards Justin Fields, get him off his baseline. Even if he runs, fine. But -5, I'll take that all day. And then Washington +3.5. I think it might have gone down or up. I think it's probably the same, if I'm not mistaken. Okay, +3.
Yep.
This is Cam Newton, people.
Cam Newton against Ron Rivera too. I'm in on the story.
Yeah, you can be in on the story, but I'm out on Cam. Give me the points against a team who beat your Tom Brady Buccaneers by 10 points, right? After a bye, Tom Brady after a bye lost by 10 points. So maybe the defense found something. Maybe they're feeling a lot better. Like Heineke it looked good, right, against that Tampa defense. I know Carolina brings pressure and they have a decent secondary, but this is Cam Newton. If he's starting, you cannot tell me that the Carolina Panthers should be favored by 3. This should be a pick 'em, right? This should be a pick 'em.
Essentially it is. I mean, they're favored by 3 at home.
Right. So give me the points, right? Give me the points, right? That's what I want. I even take them on the money line at +140. Washington is not a team I'm convinced on, but I'm convinced more on them than on Cam Newton in his second his first full week, essentially.
Yeah.
Right. And his first starting game since the Patriots. And the last time we saw the Patriots with Cam Newton, it was awful. And you and every Patriot fan out there can attest to that. It was god awful.
Wasn't
Maybe
great.
he's found something and he's got better weapons there. Sure. But no way. Give me the points of Washington.
Yeah. I think what he's probably, found is time off to at least be fresh. That's certainly what you saw in those first couple, plays that he was part of last week. Rushing touchdown, throwing touchdown after Christian McCaffrey and Robbie Anderson got him to the one.
Right. And he can rush and no Chase Young, that's going to hurt. But I like Washington. And the last one I'll talk about is Miami.
Mm-hmm.
Miami getting 3 points. I think that one is, against the Jets. 3.5. Okay, yeah. Now people are coming to their senses. It's Joe Flacco. It's Joe Flacco, people. It is Joe Flacco who's starting.
Yeah, I thought he's elite. Isn't he elite?
We just saw what the Dolphins did to Lamar Jackson. So those are the 3 games that I like.
By the way, you mentioned Chase Young. Our guy Julian Edlow, Felix, put out a tweet saying, looking like it is coming down to Chase versus Mac Jones for offensive or I'm sorry, Jamar Chase. So one Chase to another. Jamar Chase to Mac Jones for Offensive Rookie of the Year in the NFL. Opening lines and movement over the course of the season, the DK Sportsbook, all available on Edlow's Twitter here. So it has Jamar Chase as the favorite right now. Mac Jones right behind. So plus 110 for Chase, Mac Jones plus 125. Then you have Najee Harris, who's been very, very good at plus 1,000. But that's the 1, 2, 3 for Offensive Rookie of the Year at the moment. I think my question for you really is, would you have bet on Mac Jones earlier, given, we've seen quite a bit of change, or do you feel good about the way this order sits right now?
I feel good about the way the order sits. I do think that Mac Jones, I wouldn't have, I'll be the first to say I wouldn't have bet him early in the season to be here. I would have thought one of these other guys, or one of these other rookie quarterbacks would at least have the same amount of, or not the same amount, a close to amount of games started, and then have a statistical equivalence to Mac. But Matt looks great, man. He looks great for being where he's at right now.
Mm-hmm.
And he's not being compared to, and I said this on a couple of shows that I've done, Koff, that Alex Smith on Monday night mentioned that he's being compared now to other quarterbacks in the league, not just other rookies in his class, which is huge, right? That is big. And he's doing well. He's not just being compared to them, he's doing well. Jamar Chase, though, when you're that type of a game changer, it's you can see, right? It's a guy, he's just a guy who can get you 100 yards and a touchdown in every single game. The Patriots, that's the one thing holding back Mac, is that he's not going to put up those statistical behemoths like a Jamar Chase can. If these guys have if you guys lead the AFC and you get a first round bye, yeah, you could definitely see Mac Jones winning this, right? But at where it stands right now, Jamar Chase is probably my favorite. But we all know, man, these are popularity quarterback type of awards. So yeah, Mac Jones is not a bad bet. He's a better bet at plus 1,400 at the end of the year, or plus 1,600, whatever he was.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't touch this right now. I would wait. Maybe Mac Jones has a bad game, has a couple of bad games, and maybe he goes down to plus 500. That's when I would pounce on Mac. Not right now. It's too high.
In terms of, just because you alluded to it there, team futures. So at the moment, and I think it's kind of nuts, and I'm not saying that it should be the Patriots or something like that. My homerism only goes to a point, Reid. But the Buffalo Bills being the Super Bowl favorites right now at plus 600, ahead of the Bucs, who are plus 650. They've struggled their last couple of weeks, obviously. And, the Bills, Cowboys are right there, plus 800, which is, just wild, obviously, when you think of where they were last year, largely without Dak Prescott, as we know. But the Bills in particular, and the Patriots are down around plus 2,500. I don't even think it's a crazy thing to say the Bills are going to win the Patriots are going to win the division. They're only a half game behind the Bills right now. So for them to be so far back in terms of being, Super Bowl favorites, the Bills at plus 600, I don't know about you. We were texting about this recently. I have not been impressed by the Bills this year. I think they've taken a step back from where they were last year. I think what this speaks to Those three teams in particular that I read. And then you have the Rams, who have gone out and made all these moves, most recently Von Miller and Odell Beckham Jr. plus 800. And then, of course, Aaron Rodgers, Packers at plus 850. We always talk about the parity in the league, but the parity is off the charts this year, to the point where, week after week, we're asking, like, are there really any great teams in the league at the moment?
Like, look at who the Bills have beaten, to your point, right? Like, they haven't really beaten a lot of good teams. Like, they lost to the Steelers. They beat the Dolphins football team, the Texans, the Chiefs. They beat them 38-20. They lost to the Titans. They beat the Dolphins. They lost to the Jaguars, and then they beat the Jets. Like, are they a good team, right? Like, to your point. And I think you have to embrace the variance and the parity right now, where you take a look at the Patriots. It's a prime example. Yeah, plus 2,500, right? Why not? Like, why wouldn't you? Because of what Bill Belichick and the Patriots can do in playoffs. You hear it all the time. I think the Patriots on the AFC side, I would argue the Vikings on the NFC side, are two teams in my mind that you don't want to face in the playoffs, right? Like, the Vikings, Kirk Cousins looks good and serviceable. You have Dalvin Cook and those receivers, and you have a defense that can get to the quarterback, right? And we've seen the Vikings defense be a little bit banged up over the past couple of weeks. And the Patriots, we know what they can do, right? Those are the teams that you don't want to see in the playoffs. And why not take a flyer, right, on teams like that? The Chargers present maybe some value, but I think their run defense is not, it's the worst. So that's not going to hold up in the playoffs. And they don't really have a home field advantage. So yeah, embrace the variance, because it's happening. We have no idea who's good. I don't know.
Right. Every time we think somebody's good, they end up, the Bills lose to the Jaguars, or the Chiefs lose to a bad team, or you name it. I guess my point here, Reid, and heck, maybe I should take my own advice. If you're a believer in the Patriots, who, again, look as good as anyone in the NFL right now with this winning streak. I'm not saying overall they are, but right now are playing as well as anybody in the league. Keep in mind, they've not played the Bills yet. So if you are a believer in the Pats, and the Pats go out and let's say they split with the Bills, or maybe in a crazy world they take both, that number is going to change a lot. So the time to get in is right now.
Yeah, right now. And look, they're at like the Patriots are at their zenith, and like you're still getting a pretty good number, right? Like at plus 2,500. Like, some may take that, it could go down. Right, like it could go down if they lose to like plus 4,000. But boy, like, I think you're right. I think if the Patriots, win tonight, which I think they will, and they start going on a nice little streak, you're going to see this number down to where Kansas City is, right? Like, you're going to see this number close to where there's like plus 1,400. And at that point, you're going to back a rookie quarterback at plus 1,400. No, like, I think there is that baked in variance of the rookie quarterback in the playoffs, and that's why that's why the Patriots at plus 2,500. But man, we've seen other teams with the worst quarterbacks and Mac Jones get to we saw Jared Goff against your Patriots get to the Super Bowl. I know Sean McVay, yada, yada, yada. I get it. But stranger things have happened. If you're smart, yeah. And I'm not a Patriot. I am not a Patriots believer.
I know. This has got to be killing you the last, part of an hour talking about this.
I think it's great. I think the Patriots, it's like the Patriots, the Raiders, like the Lakers, the Celtics, the Red Sox, the Yankees. It's good when they're like, the leagues are better when they're good, right? Because you have something, you have a target, you have an enemy. Or for Patriots and New England fans, you have that staunch, support for your team. I think it's fantastic. You want the Patriots to be good. I think a lot of us do want them to be bad, because we want you guys to come back down to where we all are and experience what it's like to be down here in the layer of grease. But no, you guys are sitting up top with the cream, baby.
So in our last moment before we get out of here, we haven't talked any golf. You have any thoughts on what's going on there in what is it, the RSM Classic that's happening right now?
Yeah, no, it's a lot of low rounds. Sebastian Munoz shot 10 under, shot 60 off on a par 70. You shoot 60 on the first 5 holes. He and this course, right?
You've never seen that. You can't prove it.
Oh, I trust me. I don't need to see your swing to know that that's the case. But they play this tournament on 2 courses. So the Seaside Course, which is what they'll play on the weekend, the guys that make the cut, and the Plantation Course. And they rotate in the first 2 days. The Plantation Course is a par 72. Seaside is a par 70. So what's good about Sebastian Munoz and a guy like Zach Johnson as well is that they both played the Seaside Course, that par 70, and then they shot 10 and 9 under respectively. Now they go to the easier course, right, which is a par 72, 2 extra par 5s. They can increase their lead. So it's low scores. When this course has no wind, it's going to be low scores. A guy that I liked, a couple of guys that I liked pre-tournament, Russell Henley, Corey Connors, are a couple of guys that I like. They're doing well. Yep. Grayson Sigg, if you scroll down to Grayson Sigg at plus 8,000, he are plus 5,000 now. Great. He's a young guy that I liked at the beginning of the fall swing, and now at sort of the conclusion of it. He's someone that's played really well. I think he shot 700 today. So keep your eye on him, because this can be a tournament where first-time winners get to hoist the trophy. Veterans, guys who live down here, there's so much variance at this course of who can win. Everyone's in play. I even think Zach Johnson, for all of you guys who love Zach Johnson, oldie but goodie, he's at plus 2,000. I think he's live as well.
I'm going to have my eye on my phone, furiously texting Reid all throughout Thursday Night Football. We're going to have ourselves a great time. We hope all of you are as well, and that at least some of this advice leads to good things for those of you out there building lineups, placing bets, whatever you're doing. Remember, the slate comes your way Monday through Friday after the 4 o'clock Madden Sims, right around 5:15 in that window. It will be back again tomorrow. I will not be on. You will have Brendan Glasheen instead. I made sure to work today so that I could be with Reid and didn't want to put Reid through that. We saved Glash for tomorrow to take you into your weekend. Yes, cheers to you, my friend. Thanks to Eamon, our producer, Daniel, our technical director, all of you for watching. We appreciate you. Go Pats. It's my bias and also where my money should go. Reid, we'll talk to you again soon, pal.
All right, bud.